Let's quickly begin. James, thanks for having you to join Love 99.5 FM.
No problem. Nice chatting to you.
Well, to start with, we know the Premier League has seen a lot of surprising results this season, and especially the competition seems to be very, very high, better than we've seen in previous years. What do you think may have accounted for the strong competition this season?
Yeah, I think the big difference this season is there isn't one team or even two teams that are massively stronger than everyone else. I mean, you go back to, of course, 3 seasons ago. Of course, people were saying Manchester City were in a class of their own. Nobody was going to get close to them. And then we had that amazing season where Liverpool and City was so close, fighting it out until the last day of the season. And then, of course, last season, Liverpool blew everyone away, winning the title with 99 points. And I think the big difference this season is no one is going to get close to 99 points. The difference this season is with the schedule, with COVID, with the injuries, with the empty stadiums. It's just the playing field, I think, for a lot of teams, which has made, for a much closer, open Premier League title race. And, you only have to look at the number of away wins in the Premier League to realise that the absence of fans plays a big, big part. That has impacted on results a lot. As you said, there's been some crazy results in terms of high-scoring games and huge wins and massive defeats for teams. And, a lot of that is linked to this. So because they're squeezing the season into such a shorter period than usual, there's so little recovery time. And certainly I write about Liverpool on a daily basis, and Liverpool's injuries are unprecedented in their history in terms of this week when they lost to Brighton. They were without 8 established first-team players. So all of that contributes to a lot of kind of strange results that we wouldn't usually see.
Very well. Now, to Liverpool, they were champions last season, but they seems to be struggling this season. What do you pick up from what is happening this season? What seems to be the big problem with Jurgen Klopp's side?
Yeah, I mean, some people will dismiss it as an excuse, but there is no getting away from the fact that the biggest reason why Liverpool are currently 7 points off the top of the Premier League is the injuries, and in particular the injuries in the defence, because losing Virgil van Dijk for the season in October was a massive blow. But then within a few weeks you lose Joe Gomez for the season. Now they've lost Joel Matip for the season. I mean, I don't think that could ever have happened in the history of football, where you lose all 3 of your senior centre-backs to season-ending injuries. Then when you factor in, they've lost Diogo Jota for 2 months. Oxlade-Chamberlain barely played in the first half of the season. There's been so many issues. And the positive COVID tests. So many Liverpool players have had COVID, and obviously that keeps them out for a few weeks. So, and I think, although they've had some good results along the way, I think the lack of defenders has meant that Fabinho has had to play at the defence, Jordan Henderson's had to play in defence, and then that affects the midfield. Liverpool aren't as good in midfield when some of their best midfielders are having to play in defence. So, there's been lots of reasons. And I also think that Liverpool are such an emotional football team. Anfield is a very special place where there's a unique bond between the fans and the players. And I think the players really do miss having that vocal support inside grounds. And I think that helps teams that play against Liverpool, the fact that the games are having to be played with no supporters.
Very well. Now, you just spoke about injuries, and Liverpool have been hit very hard as the defensive unit. Now, Jurgen Klopp managed to get in Ben Davies and then Kuba into the team. How do you think this would be very impactful going into the last number of games to run up the season?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is it's it's going to be really interesting to see how it does kind of embed them in the Liverpool team, because I think there's no way he can play both of them straight away. It's just impossible. You can't throw two new defenders into a team and expect them to strike up an understanding. You need at least one player in that defence in the middle who is used to Liverpool's style of play, because Liverpool play with such a high defensive line that it's all about knowing when to press, when to drop off, and those kind of things you can't just pick up by reading a book or a manual from the training ground. And obviously, because these players have arrived at the end of January, they don't have that time. They don't get a pre-season. They don't get time to bed in. So I think the one who's probably most likely to feature more is Kabak. I think when you look at, although he's the younger of the two new signings, I think the fact that Kabak comes with really good Bundesliga experience. I know he's, obviously Schalke have struggled this season, but it wasn't that long ago that teams like Bayern Munich and Juventus were trying to sign Kabak. So, I think we might see a fair bit of him with Fabinho. That would be my guess. Whether he thinks Kabak is ready to start on Sunday, I'm not sure. It might be a big ask to throw him in with his first game against Man City, because it doesn't get any tougher than that. But I think certainly in the coming weeks and months, I think we'll probably see more of Kabak than Davis. But the big thing for Liverpool is being able to then release Jordan Henderson to play back in the centre of midfield, because Henderson and Fabinho can play centre-back together, but Liverpool really do miss them in midfield.
Very well, and it looks like you're already rolling into the game now. How do you assess Sunday's game? What are your expectations from Liverpool on Sunday?
Yeah, well, I certainly expect a big response from Liverpool to that, dismal defeat to Brighton in midweek, and I think we'll see a very different Liverpool performance. I think where Liverpool have actually struggled against the lesser teams this season. When you look at the results, they've dropped. They lost at home to Burnley. They dropped points against Newcastle. They've dropped points against the other teams down there as well. If you look at their results against the teams in the top 8, I think they've won 6 and drawn 3. So the bigger the game, the better this Liverpool team have performed this season. And I think part of that is tactical, because I think the bigger teams tend to come out and play, and then they give space for Liverpool to exploit in behind. Where Liverpool have really struggled is against teams that don't attack and are just set up to defend. So, and I sensed a lot of anger as well amongst the players at how they performed against Brighton. So, there's a decent amount of space to recover from Wednesday night through to Sunday afternoon. So, it's going to be an absolutely intriguing game, because Man City are absolutely flying at the moment. They've won a ridiculous number of games in a row, going back to I think the middle part of December. They're already set a Liverpool game in hand. I think if City were to win on Sunday, then Liverpool have got no chance of catching them. It's over. The title race for Liverpool. But if Liverpool were to win, that gap is back down to 4 points. Yes, City will still have a game in hand. Liverpool, I think, are back in with a shout. So, the stakes are very, very high.
Well, we know this game is important for Liverpool. And what would the loss mean to Jurgen Klopp, throwing in the towel as in the end of the season for him to retain his title, or he's still going to have that positivity in going into the final games remaining?
Well, I think the one thing we've learned about Klopp is he always stays positive, even even during what was a pretty miserable run for Liverpool in January, he stayed very, very positive. But the reality is that, you know, he will know deep down, if Liverpool lose to Man City on Sunday, there's no way they're going to win the league. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's why Sunday is so big, because, like I said, if Liverpool do win, I think the title race is on. But if they lose, not only are they out the title race, but they could face a real struggle just to get in the top four. Because when you look at the table at the moment, I think it's West Ham, Chelsea, and Everton all within 4 points of them. So another defeat for Liverpool, and I think Everton have got games in hand as well. So they could be at real risk of dropping out of that top four. And having no money in the Champions League is so big that is absolutely crucial to the club. So, people talk about, Liverpool go and sign big players this summer, and of course, they're interested in Upamecano at Leipzig, but there's the only way you can go and sign players like that is if you're in the Champions League. So if Liverpool were to miss out on the top four, then that would have massive repercussions in terms of what they could do in the transfer market this summer. So it's a really big few weeks, because even after Man City, Liverpool have got Leicester, who are obviously having a great season as well. Then they've got Leipzig in the Champions League. Then they've got Everton. So 4 huge matches, one after the other.
Very well. Now, getting deeper into the game, we saw Alisson miss in the last game. Sadio Mane seemed to have had an injury. Fabinho was out in there. From what you've picked from the training ground, which players are likely to start the game on Sunday, and which players would be making it back into the starting 11?
Yeah, well, I think that was the really positive news to come out of the training ground today, was that Sadio Mane and Fabinho both trained. So as long as they have no ill effects when they train again tomorrow, then I would expect those two to be back in the starting lineup. And also Alisson is feeling a lot better. He was ill against Brighton the other night. So I think everyone knows, if you put Alisson, Sadio Mane and Fabinho back in that team, then suddenly it looks so much stronger. So yeah, I think at the moment it's looking very positive that those three will be ready to start the game on Sunday. And if they do, then I think that gives Liverpool a fantastic chance of winning.
So when you look at these players getting back into the team, can you roll us through the 11 you would predict to start the game?
Yeah, I think, certainly Alisson in goal. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson will be the fullbacks. I think, like I said to you before, the big decision for Klopp is does he start Kabak? Is Kabak ready after just a few training sessions? My feeling is he probably won't, just because City are such a good team. I think if it was Brighton, then I think he probably would do. But because it's City, I think he might go Fabinho and Henderson as the centre halves. So that would complete the back line. I think the front three is pretty obvious in terms of, with Mane back in, it'll be Mane, Salah and Firmino. And so then obviously that leaves you the kind of the midfield three, where I think he'll probably go Wijnaldum, Thiago, and then it's probably that final spot which is difficult to predict. He's got some options there. He could go James Milner, who I thought looked very tired the other night, having played 4 or 5 games in a row. He could go Oxlade-Chamberlain, but Oxlade-Chamberlain hasn't been having a great time of it since he came back from injury. So he has got options there. Of course, he could go Shaqiri. So I'd say that final place is probably a really difficult call between those three.
All right, very well. Now, once we just got the story with how Liverpool have set up, looking at the Manchester City team, what do you think would be their greatest asset Liverpool should look at neutralizing to help them win the game?
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool's record against Man City at Anfield is unbelievably good. You have to go back to 2003 was the last time that Man City at Anfield, which is ridiculous when you think how good City have been for a number of years now. So I think one of the key factors in those games where Liverpool have done really well against City is putting their back line under pressure. The counter pressing, the way in which they hunt impacts and really close down space and force mistakes from Man City. And that's something Liverpool haven't done particularly well this season, whether it's because of the injuries, whether it's because of fatigue with so many matches. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's going to be massive for Liverpool on Saturday, Sunday, because they know we know how Guardiola's team play. They do take risks, they do pass it out from the back, they do play under pressure and try and play out of small spaces. Now, if Liverpool can really shut down that space and block the angles to make passes, then they can win the ball high up the field and they can make it count. I think the danger with City is if you don't really stamp your authority on a game, if you don't really take it to them, that if you let them have the ball and you let them dictate the pace of the game, then you're taking a huge risk because City are so good. They've had some injuries of their own this season. When you think, obviously no De Bruyne at the moment. Aguero's been out for ages. But Gundogan has been in fantastic form for them, and Guardiola's been playing again. So I think that's the most important thing for me. Play at a high tempo, play with intensity, and don't let Man City settle.
Very well. Now, if I push you to the wall to predict on Sunday, what will be your prediction?
Oh, do you know what? It's such a difficult game to predict because Liverpool have been so inconsistent this season. With some great results followed by some terrible results. I mean, City started the season badly, yet they've been on this fantastic run. So I think you have to make Man City favourites going into Sunday just because of the form they're in. But I actually really fancy Liverpool. I just think, again, going back to what I said to you before, in the big games this season, Liverpool tend to have raised it and delivered. And there's always an extra edge to these games against City. There's the rivalry between Klopp and Guardiola. I don't think there's no kind of love lost between the two teams. It can be quite spiky at times, and I think that's what fans like to see that. So I'm optimistic. And if say Mane wasn't back and Fabinho wasn't back and there was no Alisson, then I would say probably a draw would be a good result for Liverpool. But with Mane, Fabinho, and Alisson back, I'm expecting a big performance from Liverpool, and I think a 2-1 win for Klopp's team.
Well, before I allow you to go, there are news coming in of the UEFA Champions League tie against Leipzig. Probably could not or may not come off in Germany. What is the latest with regards to that? Any development, as in an exception being made for Liverpool to get into Germany for that Champions League tie?
Yeah, well, at the moment, those discussions with Leipzig and with UEFA are ongoing. The German government announced yesterday that they will not make any exceptions, and that the rule at the moment is that there's no flights can go into Germany from overseas, from any countries where they have the new variant of COVID, which of course we do have here in the UK. So yeah, I think initially there was some suggestion they would make an exception for the Liverpool squad because of course the players and the staff get tested twice a week. It's the chances of Liverpool taking someone with COVID into Germany, very regime is, but The German government have said no, we won't allow that to happen. So so now Leipzig have to try and find somewhere else to play the game. I think Budapest in Hungary has been mentioned as one possible venue for it. It's possible that UEFA could even just say, rather than it being 2 legs, it would just be played over 1 leg. Although my information is that is quite unlikely, and it's more likely that they will just find a neutral venue to play the first leg. So I think we should know more on that in the next few days.
Now, James, we're almost getting done, but I want to test your knowledge on Ghana football or football in Ghana.
Oh.
Can you? All right. Okay. Let me spare you with a club, so you'd have that opportunity to mention the clubs maybe some other time when we talk. But who's your favorite Ghanaian player to ever grace the Premier
League? I mean, Michael Essien was a fantastic player for Chelsea. I think I always enjoyed watching him play. Although I didn't enjoy watching him be part of a Chelsea team that beat Liverpool too many times. But do you know what? I think in terms of like my all-time favourite Ghanaian player, it would have to be Tony Yeboah. Just because I remember when I was younger, Tony Yeboah, when he played for Leeds United, he scored some spectacular goals. And I remember probably his most famous goal was against Liverpool with that unbelievable shot that flew past David James and hammered against the underside of the crossbar and flew in. So yeah, I think obviously some fantastic footballers have come out of Ghana over the years, but I'd say Tony Yeboah was my favourite.
Oh, James, thank you. Really appreciate your time, and we wish you the best on Sunday against Manchester City.
No problem. Nice talking to you, Kelvin.
Enjoy your night.
Cheers, mate. Take care of yourself. Speak to you again.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.